Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Saber Reels. This is the Star Wars show here on the Who Are They Real Entertainment program. My name is Toby Barkwell. With me, as always, is Matthew Thomas. And our guest today, back once again, is Jacob Pickett. How you guys doing tonight? It's late. It's very late. At least where I am.
We're both on Eastern time. It's late. It's just about to be 11 o'clock.
Late. Yep.
Yeah.
But
late show today because of business stuff.
Yeah, we all three of us had stuff going on. Matt, you were at a fun event. Me and Jake were watching UFC fights. But I'm ready to get this show going. Really excited to talk about Bad Batch episode 4. But before we get into that discussion, we're going to do our normal kind of housekeeping things here. First, a shout out to the prequels. Happy birthday. All 3 prequels had a birthday this week. Phantom Menace celebrated its 22nd birthday. Attack of the Clones celebrated its 19th birthday, and Revenge of the Sith celebrated its 16th birthday. Guys, we are old. I remember watching Revenge of the Sith in the theater, and I was 7 years old, and now it's celebrating its 16th birthday.
I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it.
Yes, I know you're older than us, Matt. We know you're old too. We're all old.
You're young. You're almost as old as the movie. That's still young.
I mean,
I'm older than all 3 of them.
Yes, you're right. But anyway, I thought that was fun. Had some good discussions about the prequels. Really happy that people celebrate these movies now. We could do a whole show about this, but I just kind of wanted to say that it's just really nice to have these movies back in the limelight. People celebrating them. I mean, The Bad Batch is a prequel show, if we're being honest. And we never would have thought in a million years that would have been a thing in 2006, right? So really, really happy to celebrate the prequels. Happy birthday once again. But before we get into our discussion of Bad Batch, like we always do, we're going to do our week in Star Wars. What did that look like? Did we watch the movies? Yeah, we got some fun things to talk about. But did we rewatch the movies? Did we read a comic book? Did we read a book? Did we buy a new collectible, which is the most popular thing we talked about in this segment? But I know me and Matt have some things to share. But Jacob, we'll start with you. What did your Star Wars week look like?
It was mainly just watching the new episode of Bad Batch yesterday. Make sure I know what day it is today. But yeah, watching that yesterday, and like you said, like seeing stuff about the prequels, since miraculously all in the same week, all had the anniversary of its release. So I was seeing some cool stuff. There's also apparently still deleted scenes from some of those movies that I haven't seen before. So I can't remember which movie it was, but I think it was probably Revenge of the Sith. I saw some extra scene where Anakin was talking with Palpatine and the delegation of the 1,000 or something like that.
Yeah, I saw that too. Yeah, I'd never seen that before.
Yeah, and so I was like, this movie, I'm a couple years older than this movie, and there's part of it, a deleted scene I hadn't even seen. So that was pretty cool.
Well, I mean, that movie was supposed to be not supposed to be, but it was like 4 hours of footage.
It was a 4-hour cut.
Right.
And so there are so many deleted scenes out there on the internet to find.
Which, by the way, you can watch a 4-hour cut of it, and it is probably my preferred way to watch Revenge of the Sith now, because it shouldn't work, but it does, it has the final 4 episodes cut into Revenge of the Sith, so you see everything happening in a nice streamline, and it's fucking gorgeous. And
that sounds amazing, and I'm gonna have to do that now.
Yeah, one of these days tomorrow. I need to watch. Yeah, one of these days I need to watch the supercut, because I mean, getting the Siege of Mandalore.
I told you about it since what, October now, Toby?
Yeah, I mean it's been a thing since Siege of Mandalore aired, right? I just have not gotten to it. But yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that deleted scene, because I had never seen it before either, and I thought it was a great scene. I'm not sure why they took it out. It definitely works, because you see Palpatine start to manipulate Anakin, right? I'm not sure when that takes place in the movie, but you can see like Anakin is defending Padme in that moment, because Palpatine's like, she's hiding something. Like, I don't know what it is, but I can see it in her eyes that she's hiding something. And Anakin's like, I don't think so, because that's his wife. Of course he's going to defend his wife.
Right. And he's like, oh, I don't think she's hiding anything, when she's hiding that she's married to the dude 2 feet away from her. Right. It's like it all works so well.
See, I think what he was referring to, though, was the start of the rebellion. Because there's another deleted scene in Revenge of the Sith where Padme, Mon Mothma, a couple other people are meeting, already talking about, like, this rebellion thing. We need to start this now while we can. Another scene that should have been in the movie, to be honest.
Keep in mind, we do know that Natalie Portman originally wasn't supposed to die in the original script, and that fights with George Lucas and the production team caused them to rewrite it. So,
okay, I didn't know that either.
Oh, word! I didn't know that either.
We're learning all kinds of things this week. We're always learning something. That's the other great thing about Star Wars.
Right.
That we're always learning something about the making of the movies. I mean, inside baseball, outside baseball stuff. Shout out to Nick. Rise of Ren repped on the Star Wars show. Heck yeah. If you have not checked out Rise of Ren, Matthew, I think you and Nick made this film, correct?
Me, Nick, and Connor, technically. I did the first and final draft. Connor did the second draft. So Connor and I are the credited screenwriters. Nick and I co-directed.
Okay, where can our friends find that?
YouTube, on Nick Molbach's YouTube channel. So,
cool.
Yeah, just search Rise of Ren. It's literally the first thing that pops up because it's got over 70,000 views. We're trying to get that to 75 by the end of the year. So, yeah.
Very cool. But anyway, Matthew, we have some things to share, or you have some things to share. I can't share them yet because you have them.
Yeah, but Toby, first off,
hello there. Hello there. Hi.
Yeah, I think that was a perfect way to start it because as you and I talked about in the past couple weeks on the show, we had some Target exclusive Black Series figures coming out. And you, being in the middle of bumfuck nowhere, were afraid you weren't going to be able to get them.
I was afraid, yes. I was very scared.
And then I had to tell you, look, dude, I live by 5 Targets. You'll at least get one of them. And you were even skeptical about that. Well, between my girlfriend and I, 5 Target trips later, we have Echo. We have Obi-Wan, and we have Anakin in the Clone Wars exclusive packaging.
Yes. Funny story about that. I'm going to give them all the deets because you texted me that morning, and I'm like half asleep. It's like 7 o'clock mine. And
it was 7. It was 8, we are both Eastern Standard Time. It was literally 8:15 in the morning.
Okay, all right. So it was about 8 o'clock, and I see a text, and I read it, and I'm half asleep, so I'm not like fully registering the words. I just see Matt Thomas, and I see Target, and I'm like, in my brain, I'm like, okay, he's getting the Black Series, right? All right, cool. I go back to sleep. He wakes me up with a phone call, and I don't know what he's talking about. Like, I know that it's Matt. I know that's who I'm talking to, and I hear him say, like, they got one, I think is what he said, and then he had Echo, is what he said. And I don't remember the rest of the conversation.
I said I had 2. I had Obi-Wan and Echo for you.
Okay, see,
but in the text, I said in the text message before, no Anakin, because you had told me, he's like, I'm just looking for Anakin and Echo.
Right.
I'm like, they don't have Anakin, but they have an Obi-Wan. Do you want it? You're like, no, I'm good. I'm like, all right, so I picked up Echo for him. I was like, I really want Obi-Wan.
I do not remember the conversation. I remember answering the phone and it being you. I don't remember what was said after. So
I was just like,
for future reference,
I'll
if
pick
you're
it
hunting, I was gonna say for future reference, if you're hunting figures for your friends, make sure that they are awake when you're speaking to them.
The hunting is always done in the early morning. That's the thing. You always hunt in the early morning. There's no way around it.
Yeah, if you snooze, you lose, especially with toys. But
I picked up my Obi-Wan, Toby's Obi-Wan, and an Echo. Excuse me, my Obi-Wan, Toby's Echo, and Obi-Wan and an Echo for my buddy Anton. So Toby messages me later. He's like, yeah, I sent the money. He's like, they didn't have Anakin. I'm like, no. He's like, what about Obi-Wan? I'm like, dude, I told you I had an Obi-Wan in hand for you earlier, and you said, no, I don't need it. He's like, wait, what?
Saying that.
He's like, I did? I'm like, yeah. He's like, oh, well, if you come across another Obi-Wan, can you pick it up too? So I said, yeah, fine, screw it, whatever. And I told him, like, the talk is Anakin will be available tomorrow. I'm going to be at work, but Jen is going to go out and check. He's like, all right, cool. So I'm texting. I wake up my girlfriend at 7:30. I'm like, hey, it's time to go. Listen, oh, no, I got it. I'm like, I really want Anakin, and so does Toby. And she's like, fine. So she goes because we had checked other targets the day before, and literally it was either Obi-Wan or Echo. So we missed out. So and most of them said, yeah, we'll have Anakin tomorrow. So she goes, the target that is like around the corner from my house. Yeah, we're limiting it to one of each figure for everyone because we know these are going to be popular. So she picked up my Anakin, and she lives by a Target herself. She's like, all right, I'm going to be nice, and I'm going to go to that Target and see if they have anything. So before he changes his mind again, he wants Obi-Wan and Anakin, and after that, that's it, right? I'm like, yes. So she gets there. I'm at work. I come back and check my phone. And I get a text from her that says Toby is the luckiest motherfucker alive because they had like a full stack of Anakins. They literally had one Obi-Wan left.
Wow.
So Toby got the last Obi-Wan in that store.
Man,
he got his Anakin and Obi-Wan in one trip, and she's like. She did a little eBay search and she's like, I regret not buying the rest of those Anakins just because they're only those are $25 figures and they're selling for 60 plus. She's like, I could have just sold all those on. I'm like, but I'm glad you did because people hate people like that.
Shout out to Jen, the MVP of today's show and all the shows. She got me the figures that I wanted. When I didn't,
that you needed.
Yes. Out of all of the Black Series released the last like year and a half,
that was the only one I heard you say I need.
Those are the that wave, man, incredible. I hope they keep doing it. Like I hope they do more.
So I have a theory because they always do like the convention exclusives and things like that. It only makes sense that they do a repackage of Rex and an Ahsoka, not the Ahsoka we got. But the younger Ahsoka in that packaging.
Yeah, they got to. Like, it's just a matter of time. And
then for myself, I did a favor for a buddy, and he picked up Crosshair for me, which, if you heard my story in the last couple of weeks, I had to cancel my pre-order because money. And now I got that figure free because of a favor. So
nice. Jacob, on a scale of 1 to 10, how jealous are you of me and Matthew?
I would say a 7 because I wish that I had a place to put that kind of stuff because I don't collect a lot of things, but if I had the space and the money, I absolutely would.
Okay, see, that's the trick. You gotta buy it now while you can and put it in storage.
That's fair.
And then when you get a nice crib, you can display it all nice and neat. Because right now, my display is trash. Like I'm looking at my figures; they are on my desk, in weird spots. Right? It looks terrible.
My display is a ton of clear command hooks. And they're all hanging on my wall.
Yeah, I don't even have that. Mine are just kind of stacked on each other, and they're not even any sort of order. But when I do move, I will make them look nice because that's the whole point.
Let's see. So I'm not going to turn my camera, but right now I'm looking at my Mandalorian / convention exclusive shelf where I can see the HasCon, Cad Bane, and the armorer with the fur vest or fur coat. Then I have my normal armor. I have both of these full Beskar Mandos, the single one and the one with the child. I have Moff Gideon. I have Grief Karga.
We get it. You got all the figures, Matt. Proud of you. I will get there one day.
No, you won't, because you only do clones.
No, I mean I got the Clone Wars wave now. I'm happy about that. But anyway, we do have some news this week.
Yes.
It's been a very slow kind of news cycle the last couple of weeks because it's been all about the Bad Batch, which obviously is the new show. But we did get some news this week. Shout out to Dave Filoni. My man got promoted over at Lucasfilm a long time ago.
About a year ago. And Lucasfilm just slyly is like, here, by the way.
We're just now finding out about it. It's great news. I'm glad to see him in more of an executive role, kind of overseeing kind of the storytelling at Lucasfilm in terms of the Star Wars division. But in a Variety article talking about that, just kind of there, no real context added to it. But the Rangers of the New Republic show, which was going to be a new Star Wars show on Disney Plus that was going to take place in the same timeline as The Mandalorian, as Ahsoka, as Book of Boba Fett. That show is no longer in active development, according to this Variety article. Now, we didn't know a lot about the show. All we had was the title. And going off of the title and the timeline, we're thinking, oh, that's going to be like a Cara Dune type show, right? She's in The Mandalorian. She's made a ranger or a sheriff of the New Republic. And there's a couple other star pilots that we see throughout the show. So we thought that this show was going to be kind of around them and kind of being the sheriffs of this New Republic, in the galaxy now that the Empire has fallen, which, on paper sounds like an interesting show. But for me personally, not the show I was looking forward to the most. I was definitely looking forward to more Boba Fett, Ahsoka, right? But there's still an interesting show in theory. But after the Gina Carano situation, after that whole thing fell through, it seems to me that they're no longer going to, continue to develop this show if she's not going to be the main character in the show.
Or they're trying to rework it to where...
Or they're trying, yeah. And not saying that this might come out, in the future. We don't know. But right now, currently, it is not in active development. Very interesting news this week. A lot of people had a lot of thoughts about it. Some people were really bummed because they wanted to... it's another Star Wars show, right? And that's exciting, but we're not going to get it now. But then some people were like me who were like, meh, that wasn't really excited about it anyway. So Jacob, what's your reaction to this news that Rangers of the New Republic will no longer be in active development currently?
I kind of had the same reaction. Like, I didn't know about that until either when I got in here and you mentioned it to me, or I think you said it in the tweet announcing this show earlier. I think that's so I heard it. I didn't hear about it until like either 20 minutes or a couple hours ago. Yeah,
right.
So I didn't even, and I didn't really think of it as being in. I didn't really know it was in active development either. Like so I was like, oh, they pulled it off of active development. I didn't even know it was on. So it's like I didn't really miss anything. But yeah, going into it like you did, thinking about it, it definitely was an interesting concept. And obviously we didn't know a whole lot about it, and we just had some speculation because all we knew about really like Rangers were those couple of former Rebellion, now New Republic pilots that were in a couple episodes, and they talked to Cara Dune in that one episode, and that was it. So a lot of it was speculation anyway, and when it's stuff like that usually means it's got some potential, and I wouldn't be surprised if they do something with it later on, but like maybe just like focus on those pilots or introduce new characters, or they probably would bring in at least one or two like pre-established characters as well to go along with it that would fit into that, or that we know maybe could have been in it or were part of it. I think that's possible, but for it being like not kaput, but for it being kind of put off for now, I'm not that sad about it.
No, I agree 100%. There are so many shows coming soon.
Yeah, I mean, they announced like 20.
They announced so many shows, right? And out of all of the shows that they announced, if you were going to tell me, like, hey, like you have to pick one show that they don't end up making, I'm probably picking this Rangers show, right? Matthew, what are your thoughts on this whole thing?
I mean, here's the thing. I love all Star Wars. I was more so interested in the actor, from Kim's Convenience. His name's slipping my mind right now. I was interested to see more of him because Kim's Convenience is about to be over. I'm like, oh, it's about to be over. He's going to jump into this. I liked his character in the bit that we got. So I was
he's a huge Star Wars fan too.
Oh yeah. Actor. So I was like, hell yeah, let's go. I'm here for it. And one bad apple ruins it for everyone. That's what it boils down to. One bad apple. Yeah. And I felt bad because I'm like, damn, this dude literally had the dream gig, and he is getting screwed over because of someone who wanted to spew their hateful rhetoric all over the place.
No, you're exactly right. And it sucks that he has to suffer. We're going to see more of him. I have no doubt in my mind. He became a fan favorite like almost right away. And people discovered Kim's Convenience because of him in this show.
Yep.
And like I mentioned just a second ago, he is a huge Star Wars fan. Like he cosplays, he goes to conventions.
He's a part of the 501st.
Like he is a fan, right?
Word.
And if you watch interviews, I'm sorry, I don't remember his name either. I should have looked this up before the show. Matthew, if you could do that while I'm talking,
Yeah,
that'd be
I'm
great.
working on it right now.
But he was doing an interview about when he found out he was on the show, and like his description of like the scene was just amazing, of how he was like started getting super emotional. He thought he was going to cry. They gave him, I believe, Wedge's helmet to try on while he was getting his costume like tested or whatever. And he's like, I was wearing Wedge Antilles' helmet. Like, think about that. And I was like, I can imagine.
Paul Lee,
yes. And what's his name in the show? If you could look that up as well, because it's gonna bug me the rest of the show if I don't find out. But yeah, Rangers of the New Republic no longer in active development. Again, this show could be picked up again in a few years. I know
maybe
they have this.
Maybe by the end of this year. We don't know.
Yeah, I mean, they obviously had a big plan with the Mandalorian.
Captain Carson Teva.
Carson Teva. There we go. Yep, Captain Carson Teva. Anyway, they had a lot of plans for this Mandalorian timeline with Book of Boba Fett, with Ahsoka, with Mandalorian Season 3. And it was pitched that they were going to have a culmination event after all these shows aired. And it was going to be this big, huge thing, taking all of the characters and storylines and wrapping them up in a big either movie or another series. We still don't really know. And I imagine that Ranger of the New Republic was going to be a very important piece to that puzzle. And now that we're not getting it, they're going to have to fill that void somehow. So it'll be interesting to see how this develops going forward. I still want to see the show, but right now I'm not that sad that we're not going to get it. But yeah, that was our big news for the week. Again, shout out to Dave Filoni. We're very excited to see him in the captain's chair of Star Wars moving forward. I know people like to moan and groan about Kathleen being in charge, and they're dumb because they don't know how presidents of studios work. They're not the ones actually writing the scripts.
Right.
I don't know if they know that.
They don't.
They don't, guys. They don't.
They just don't.
They bring the creatives together, and then together they help create the story. And Dave Filoni is going to have a much more impactful role in that regard in terms of how they're going to weave all these Star Wars stories together on film, with the movies, even in the other material like the books and the comics. So very happy for Dave, my buddy, my best friend that I met at Celebration 2 years ago.
You ruined his life.
I ruined his life. Or I ruined his walk
day
on the Celebration floor. I'm not going to tell that story again. Y'all can check out 3 episodes ago when I tell that story.
Yep.
But anyway, let's talk about the Bad Batch, episode 4, titled Cornered. Another about 26-minute episode. We're just with the Bad Batch this time, no Crosshair. But once again, very typical Star Wars. No food rations, low on fuel, got to stop at a random planet and kind of get some goods so they can kind of figure out where they're going to go. And they say very early on in the episode they're looking for a place to hide. The Empire is after them. They don't like that, obviously. Everything is changing. So much is happening. The clones, we don't know. The microchips. And they really don't know what to do with themselves right now, right? They're in an ever-changing galaxy. They need to find a place to lay low. Before they can do that, they got to fix their ship again because the Empire is tracking them, and Tech knows a way to fix their ship to where they can't be tracked anymore. I know there's a term related to it. I don't remember the term. But
They scrambled.
Scramble
Scrambling.
their
Thank
signal.
you, Jacob. So yeah, that's kind of the setup of the show. And then we kind of just go off from there. Hunter and Omega kind of go off looking for some food and to sell some things. And Omega gets into more trouble. That seems like that's going to be the overall theme of this first season, is Omega just kind of learning about the mean streets of the galaxy, right? She thinks everyone's her friend, right? Anyone she meets, like, you're nice, right? Like, all my friends are over there. You're my new friend, right? But that's not how it works. So start with Jacob. Overall thoughts on the episode called Cornered, episode 4.
I enjoyed this a lot. I like when we can, like since they landed on Pantora for this episode, I immediately was like excited about that because I was like, whether or not they actually have some stuff involving what if they have some stuff involving like actual like Pantorans or like anything like with characters we may know, like Senator Chuchi and the chairman and his daughters, all those like pre-established characters. You know, like I was like, we don't even have to see them. The fact that we're even on this planet is great, and I'm excited for it because, you know, they just anything that's because you know like that seemed like something that was brought up in the Clone Wars, and you know it just seemed like everything in that show we were never going to see again. So being able to see that was cool, and overall I enjoyed it. I liked the shenanigans that they got up to, just trying to make ends meet. Like well, I'm sure we'll go into a little more, but Echo posing as a droid was hilarious.
Yes, that was
and
great.
I'm amazed that hadn't even crossed my mind as a possibility for him to do that.
And he knows his worth. I'm so happy that Echo knows
that was
his worth.
Oh my god!
He's like, I'm
so
worth more than 2,000. And Hunter's like,
and that only goes for 3.
You right.
No, so
that was a great moment. I'm so glad we got to see more of Echo in this episode because he really has been on the back burner at least the first 3 episodes of the show. Mm-hmm. But continue.
Yeah, but just everything going around. We got the first actual appearance of Fennec Shand. Mm-hmm. I don't think she went named in the entire episode, but like we all know who it is.
Right. Right.
And Ming-Na Wen returning to voice her is you'd love to see it, and she's clearly a huge Star Wars fan as well because seeing her talk about everything on Twitter after the episode was a lot of fun as well. But yeah, like so being able to see a character that was introduced like barely a year and a half ago, like in a live action show, then we brought into animation. Like it's always been the other way around until now, and that just blows my mind with how far we've come. And I'm super excited. I'm so happy that's happened, and I'm excited for more stuff like that to happen.
Yeah, and we thought she was dead, right? After
her first appearance.
Yeah, after the first season of Mando, we're like, well, she's definitely dead. Well, they do tease at the end of that episode
but you didn't think she'd be alive. You thought she
No.
Yeah, you thought like, oh, someone's hunting them down, and they're on the trail.
Well, at the very least, we think, okay, she could survive, but we never would have thought she would be in a Clone Wars sequel show. Like, are you kidding me? I'm gonna keep saying this every episode. That we have a Clone Wars sequel show, but we're starting to see the integration of all these new Disney era Star Wars properties. Right, Mandalorian is setting up so many different things in that world, and now we're going back in time. What, like 25 years, and now we're seeing characters like pop up, right? So we're gonna continue to see that integration, and again, very cool to see Fennec Shand show up in the show. We knew she was gonna be in it based off the trailers, obviously, in the marketing. But to see her in her first episode, a very young Fennec Shand, like she's got to be like 20-something.
Yeah, right? Another thing too, like it's clear that she's like a bounty hunter, or mercenary, or something like that. But if I remember correctly, in Mandalorian, didn't they say that she was like a former Imperial like soldier of some kind? I may have that mixed up, but
I think you're thinking of Cara Dune being a shock. But Sean has always been a bounty hunter of sorts.
Okay.
Yeah, she's like a legendary bounty hunter. But right now
that's what it was.
She's not, because she's so young. So we're going to see, hopefully, through this show and maybe other properties, see why she becomes this legendary bounty hunter.
It's hinted at, so.
Yeah, that too. But Matthew, go ahead with your overall thoughts on the episode real quick.
I enjoyed it. It was, like I told you last week, I wanted to start getting into the meat and bones of it with this episode. And it wasn't perfect for that, but it was a start. It's all I needed. It was all I wanted. And now we're starting to get an idea of where this is going to go. And we thought initially that Fennec was going to join up with the crew. That was something you and I predicted in that first episode. And it's not what we got right away. So I'm like, all right, cool. I'm curious to see how this kind of develops. What are they able to turn her? Do they end up teaming up? Because it's possible that they don't. I mean, there's a lot to digest and set up with this episode alone with that in mind. So overall, happy with it. I love Omega. I love Omega.
She's great.
It's just More Omega, please. Or Omega.
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 Teak. Rika. Onta. But the kind of start of the show, like I mentioned, is they got to land on Pantora and get their ship figured out. And then they land in the spaceport, and the spaceport manager is like, I need more credits for you to stay here. And they're like, and
for me not to report your ship. He's like, oh, you don't want me to report this? I need some credits.
Right. And the Bad Batch, or specifically Tech and Wrecker, have no idea like what is happening because they've had everything paid for them. Like they've been a part of the Republic Army, right? Like they didn't have to pay for anything. And so they're like looking at each other like, wait, we have to give this guy money? Like what? And it sucks for them because they are low on credits and now they're having to pay more credits just to park their ship. And then like right away we see, them this spaceport manager guy like get a hold of Fennec Shand like, hey, like I found something you might be interested in. And we come to find out Fennec Shand is looking for Omega. I'm going to say Omega every single time. It's Omega, but the accent,
Omega.
You can't escape the accent.
It's Omega.
But why is Fennec Shand looking for Omega, or who hired her? Like that's the big question that we don't get answered in this episode. Is someone is looking for her, and I think the obvious answer that first pops in your mind is, the Empire. But the Empire doesn't know who she is. The only people who know who she is the Kaminoans.
Right.
So there's some shenanigans going on over on Kamino, not just with the Imperials.
Yeah,
so
I'm
curious.
That was my
what
thought.
You guys think?
Yeah, when it came to that, I was like, at first I was confused. I figured like, oh well, she's after them and their ships documented because they're recognized as fugitives now and whatnot, stuff like that. But then when she specifically had that hologram of Omega, it was like, oh, okay. So it seems like, at least my guess is that, because as we saw a couple episodes ago, specifically Nala Se helped them escape with Omega when Crosshair almost got her and got all of them. So I'm thinking it's probably her, because it seems like not even the Kaminoans as a whole, Nala Se specifically, wants Omega to be safe. Like, obviously returned as well at this point, but she doesn't want any harm to get to her. And there's still this whole thing around Omega that we have no idea about, that I'm sure we'll get to by the end of the season. But like, this is just adding more to it, because it's not, because like I said before, like you immediately assume, oh yeah, it's just, there's a bounty on him. They want him killed or taken hostage because the Empire's like that now. And that's just how it is. They want to rule with an iron fist, so they're trying to get these loose ends covered up as fast as possible. But it's not that. Immediately, they show you that it's specifically Omega. So there's this whole extra thing going on where she's more important. It's like, don't even bother with the other guys that are fugitives. Just get the kid. So I'm every episode I'm getting more and more curious as to what her whole deal is and why she's that important.
Yeah, the Bad Batch are stuck between a rock and a hard place. Like, they have the Imperials looking for them specifically because they're on the run. Like, they're Imperial property now, and they're on the run, obviously don't want to get captured. And now the Kaminoans, assumingly, are looking for Omega, right? So that obviously they want to go hide somewhere. Everyone's looking for them right now. And it makes it very interesting for their journey because, I mean, we see every single episode the bond that the Bad Batch are creating with Omega, right? Having these adventures, she gets to go to, kind of this outdoor market for the first time. She's been on Kamino her whole life. And we see in the very beginning of the episode, she's like, I want to go explore. Like, let's go, on these adventures. And the Bad Batch are like, no. Yeah, sightseeing specifically, yeah. And the Bad Batch are like, no, we got to go park it for a little bit and figure out what we're gonna do next. But anyway, Matthew, what are your whole thoughts on what the Kaminoans' overall plan is? Is it even the Kaminoans that's looking for her, or is it someone that we've yet to see?
I mean, I think I hinted at this last episode because we had that moment where they were talking about they just needed one clone back. So it makes sense that they are the ones possibly behind Fennec and them hunting down Omega. I mean, it just makes sense from this point of view. It's
from what we've seen so far, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm like I said, I'm curious. It's come to the point where with Star Wars, I don't want to theorize anymore because I enjoy the stuff too much. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, it's still like, well, kind of doing this semi-professionally, so you gotta still theorize a bit.
No, I think there's a difference between theorizing and letting your expectations get in the way, right? Like we can, as friends, talk about like what's gonna happen next. What do you think's gonna happen next? That's not gonna change how I feel about the show. It's not like, well, this definitely needs to happen next or that sucks. Like, no, I'm not that type of fan, and I don't think you guys are either, right? Like you like to kind of guess what's gonna happen next, and you're never correct. At least I'm never correct. I'm terrible at predicting things, which makes it even more fun, right? Because it's more fun to be surprised watching the show as it airs than like looking for leaks online and trying to figure out what the plan is. Like I just think it's fun to talk about it, and having each episode released every week allows us to do that, and it's a lot of fun for me. And I hope it's fun for those who are watching, because I watch this stuff. I eat this stuff up every single week. Like right after the show airs, I'm like looking for reviews and discussions about it, because like this is what I love. This is what I'm passionate about. But other than that, there's not really a whole lot of more development. Obviously, Omega is saved by Hunter at the very end. I want to talk about, this was a very Attack of the Clones-esque episode in terms of the sound design, the visual design. Like it reminded me so much of the speeder chase at the beginning of Attack of the Clones. Like it was like on point, like with the sounds of the speeders and of people like being thrown off of speeders. Like so many people died in this episode. Can we talk about that?
I that was something I immediately saw, like because before it was like mainly clones, but it's like, that happened like every episode of the Clone Wars. So like that wasn't new with specifically them.
Right.
But then in this episode, as soon as Fennec Shand shows up, like those Pantoran police dudes, one dude gets shot, he crashes into his friend. Those guys are dead. Then she steals that speeder and she bashes that dude's head in, and then literally I thought he was just gonna like push him aside, huck that dude out while they were flying.
Like no way he survived.
That dude is super dead. And then all those they had that, I don't know, garbage storage truck, the flying thing, and Omega dumped all that. So like I don't know what that was about. A lot of things exploded. A lot of people got shot. Like this episode was wild.
I mean, I know Star Wars is for kids, and this is, at the end of the day, this is a kids show. But like we mentioned last week, they're not pulling punches. Like they're really showing, the violence.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing too. People are like, oh yeah, Star Wars has always been like kind of more for kids. Like in the very first Star Wars period, a dude got his arm chopped off, and there was blood everywhere. Like it's been, true. and yeah, like with the Clone Wars, it was kind of like friendly at the beginning. But then once you get to like season 3, they just didn't care anymore, and they were like, "Fuck it, everybody's dying. People are getting decapitated. People are getting shot to death. People are exploding horribly. People are like just getting completely ruined all the time." And that's not something that they slowed down on at all.
Yeah,
to say the least.
It doesn't bother me per se,
right?
But it's still like you can't not talk about it. Like this is the second episode in a row where we're seeing people get murked, like one after another. I mean, it's very interesting that they're doing that. And I mean, if we're being honest, like how many kids are watching this show? I mean, I'm sure there's a few, but the target audience is not. Okay, I take that back. It's again, Star Wars is always for kids, but the people who, for the majority, are watching the show are people like us who grew up with the Clone Wars and are watching the sequel series.
Right.
That's just my opinion, at least. But I hope the kids understand. They have a parent next to them explaining like this is fake, this is a cartoon, like these people didn't really die, they're fine, like they just got some scratches, it's not a big deal. But anyway, I feel like we've covered just about everything. We talked about Echo, kind of being sold for a couple hours, and then he brings in the droids to help fix the ship at the end. Like that was kind of funny. Wrecker hits his head again. That's a thing.
That dude, didn't they straight up say he had a concussion like an episode or two ago?
Well, last episode he hits his head while the ship crashes on that moon.
Oh yeah, and
he's just about it.
Yeah, he was kaput for the whole episode.
Yeah, because you weren't on last week's show, but we talked about how we think that's going to interfere with his inhibitor chip, right? Because, like I said last week, the last time we saw a clone complain about a headache was Tup. Like Tup had a headache.
Oh, that's true.
And then he killed a Jedi.
Yeah.
And now Wrecker has hit his head, during that ship crash, and he's complaining about, oh, my head hurts, like it hurts really bad. I don't think they would just throw that in there for comic relief. I feel like that's going to play a role. And then in this episode, he goes to fight Finnick, and she slams his head into the wall, and he gets knocked out.
He gets
Like,
one
this is the
shot
second
as well.
time.
Yeah, he gets one shot as well. I was thinking like, oh, this is gonna be cool, Braun versus Technique, and she just kicks his ass with no issue whatsoever.
Yeah, like he like, it's like, Omega, you go up top, I'll handle this. It cracks his knuckles, and then she's just
And
like,
then it's just
boom.
gone.
Yep. So we're gonna have to continue to keep an eye on Wrecker's head. Like, that's gonna be the new thing. Every episode is an update on
How does
the
Wrecker
status.
hit his head this week?
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
How many concussions is this dude gonna get in a couple days span?
But I mean, they have to do something with that. They wouldn't set that up for no reason. And it'll be really interesting to see, what happens. Like, is Wrecker's chip going to activate, and then all of the Bad Batch are going to have to stop Wrecker, who Wrecker, on one side is like this cute, cuddly teddy bear. He's big and strong and wants to smash things, but at the heart, he's Uncle Wrecker. But what about, inhibitor chip Wrecker? Like, what's that going to look like? He's going to be a force to be reckoned with, because he's a big
thought.
dude, right?
Thought.
I have a very confident feeling that they're going to have to handle that somehow, and that's going to be rough to see, like, the Bad Batch handle that. How are they going to handle that? But that remains to be seen. We probably won't see it next episode. We still got what 12 episodes left?
Yep.
Is that my math?
12
correct?
episodes left.
That's still a lot of show. That is 6 hours of show still. So we'll find out hopefully soon what happens with him. And hopefully we see Rex, because we still haven't seen Rex yet, and that's what I'm waiting on, is my boy to show up. But am I missing anything, guys? I feel like we covered everything for the most part. These are very... Go ahead.
Star Wars adjacent news. Disneyland is letting up on their park limits. It is now at 100%. You either just have to be vaxxed or provide a recently negative COVID test. So you'll see, at least in California, a nice little spike in the park attendance, which hopefully means more Galaxy's Edge. So.
Okay, very cool. But in terms of Bad Batch, is there anything in the episode that I missed that we didn't cover?
I mean,
these are
like,
pretty short episodes, so there's not a lot to talk about.
Yeah, and like they had, we're seeing more of, the Empire like move in, so to speak, and seeing all these people that are just celebrating how the war is over, but they have no idea that's within
the war's
a couple.
Just beginning.
Yeah, they have no idea that's within probably a couple days, if not like a couple more weeks, that it's going to be a complete, like totalitarianism, overall ruling with an iron fist thing. Because everyone behind the scenes know, like Tarkin knows, the Emperor knows, of course, and like even the Kaminoans know, but most everybody else is just like, yay, the war's over, confetti, that's what they like. What Omega even said, like, well, the war's over, isn't that good? And then they're like, depending on what side you're on,
right?
And like, because like they're obviously on the run, and their lives just got way harder, and everybody else is just like, yay, no more fighting, but they have
Jacob,
no idea what's going to come.
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because that is a very important part of this episode. I can't believe I forgot about it, but they make it very clear that, like, pedestrians and regular citizens of the galaxy are celebrating this. They are celebrating the birth of the Empire, because they've just went through 3 years of war, right? And they see the Empire as like, okay, we're going back to basics, I guess. Like, no more war. They're going to restart everything. Trade in your credits, right?
Trading your credits free of charge. They were charging people.
Yeah, and I mean, we even see in the last episode that Imperial recruit guy, he's like, the Republic never did anything for me. The Empire recruited me as a soldier, and I have a roof over my head. I have food in my belly. So all across the galaxy, you're seeing just regular folks like celebrating this, like no more war. Hopefully with the Empire, we can have one unified government to kind of run things. No more delegations, no more fighting, no more politics, right? And I think it's easy to laugh at them and be like, you guys have no idea what you're in for, right? We know, because we see what happens, but they don't know what to expect, right? Like, the war just ended like a week ago. Like, they're a week into this, and they're just happy to be through it and to be alive.
Yeah.
But I mean, like Echo says, like, it really depends on what side you're on. And like we saw in last week's episode, or no, it was the first episode when the Bad Batch meets Saw Gerrera. Gerrera talks about how the war is just beginning. We're already seeing the seeds of the rebellion being, spread. So it's going to be interesting to see how people's perceptions of the Empire change over time, because it's, like you said, very quickly where we start to really see what the Empire is about. And that's the most interesting part of Star Wars to me, is the Empire versus the Rebellion, that era. And to see the roots of it. We're seeing the very, very beginning of it. And that's really cool to me, because we're in an era unexplored. And I can't wait to see what happens next. But that's going to do it for our episode breakdown. Matthew, final thoughts, predictions for next week? I know it's really hard to guess anymore.
Yeah, the only prediction I'll make is more Fennec Sean. Like I said, I enjoyed it. I'm just right now. This feels like a better version of season 1 of Rebels. It's a better version of season 1 of Clone Wars. It's that first setup season, except it's doing a better job of keeping you engaged the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
Like this show's still finding its footing, but it has an easier base to jump off than compared to what Rebels did, because this is coming directly a year after. Like, it started a year after, to the day that we saw the end of Clone Wars.
Mm-hmm.
So they had an easier jumping off point. I mean, look, what else can you say?
Jacob, overall thoughts, final thoughts, I guess, and predictions for what we might see in the next couple episodes.
Yeah, I enjoyed this like I've enjoyed the other ones. Like, I get that it's a little weird seeing as how the first episode was like about an hour or over an hour, and then getting to these smaller ones. But honestly, it's just like watching Clone Wars and Rebels again every week when it was coming out. It's like 1 week you might get an episode where, not too much happened, but with how the show is looking like this, I doubt there's going to be like full-on filler. Like even like an episode where something kind of small happens, and even if we look back at the whole season once it's all over, some of these episodes may seem
normally comes back and plays a major part into it. What seems small normally comes back.
Right, and that's a good point. But even if like once the season's over and we look at every episode and we're like, oh, looking back, these like episode 3 or 4, like we were just talking about, ended up being kind of minor in the grand scheme of things. You don't know that till after. So like the things that happen in this episode could be referenced the rest of the season. It could maybe one time, it could not at all. Like, we don't know. And I like that. So for going forward, I mean, I really just want to know, like, because I feel like finding out that specifically Omega is the one being hunted by at least one person in the galaxy, which usually doesn't stay that way. I mean, that's how it worked for the child in Mandalorian. We thought one dude was after him because everybody else died, and then that turned out to not be the case at all. So I feel like that was kind of a big nugget of information that they gave for this episode. So it probably won't be like another big one next episode, but still, like, anything getting us closer to what her whole deal is what I'm most anticipating.
Yeah, if we know one bounty hunter is looking for Omega, at least 4 more are looking for Omega, and I'm just going to say it now. Boba Fett will appear in the show at some point. I think Boba Fett and Fennec have a history that we don't know about, and I think that it'll be a young Boba Fett. It'll be like
I was about to say, I think it'll be a young Boba Fett. Would it even be 16? Think about it. He was 12 or 10 or so in Attack of the Clones, and it's only realistically 3 years later.
Mm-hmm. Right. So he's a young boy.
A baby teen.
Yeah. His armor probably don't even fit him yet. So that
right.
I think we get similar to what we saw later on in Clone Wars with him, where he started to have that armor and
which, guess who else is going to show up? He has to show up. Come on, guys. Come on. Cad Bane. He has to. What happened to him?
We don't know. I would absolutely love to see him more. He is.
I have 2 of his figures for that reason. I love him. I got the con exclusive one and the normal box one. So hey,
if I know Dave at all, he's my best friend. Remember, he never fails to not close chapters and stories on characters that he set up. Right? We saw Ahsoka's chapter begin and end begin and end again, and now we're waiting for it to end again with the Ahsoka show. We saw it with Maul. We saw Maul be resurrected, and his chapter and story ended and resurrected and then ended again. We're going to see it with Cad Bane. It is just a matter of time, and I believe it will be in this show. At some point, our blue friend will return back to Star Wars where he belongs, and we'll see what happens, because there is somewhere on the internet a short clip of a Clone Wars scene that was going to be in a future season of Cad Bane and Boba Fett having like an old school Western duel. And we see that Cad Bane gives Boba Fett the dent in his helmet. Like, that was going to happen, and then Clone Wars got canceled. So I believe.
Keep in mind, all those stories are technically canon. You could have watched the entire Bad Batch arc before the complete animation, before we even saw it in season 7. So Yep, that's true. There's so many. I think I talked about this. It's still out there. It's still on YouTube.
2 weeks ago. But there are so many unfinished episodes and arcs of the Clone Wars that
are
I hope
all
we
considered
see one
canon.
day. Yeah, I hope we see them finished, because like, why not? You have the money, you have the budget, you have the animators. Like the animations or the animatics are already done. You just have to finish them, and the recordings are done. Like, they're right there. Like, what's the one with Asajj, like, that gets turned into a
Dark
book?
Disciple.
Dark Disciple. That arc is.
I mean, you have Obi-Wan and Anakin stealing that giant kyber crystal. So like,
there are like 6 or 7 arcs of the show that are unfinished that we're just waiting for them to release. Right. I hope we see it one day, but I mean, you never know with these things. They have 15 shows they're working on, and one show just got put on the shelf, so who knows. But anyway, that's gonna do it for this episode of Saber Reels. Had some news to talk about, had some more collectibles. That's just gonna be a reoccurring thing here. That's what we do. We buy stuff, we talk about it. And then another Bad Batch review. We will be back next week to talk about episode 5. Don't know what that's called yet. Don't know what's gonna happen, but we're gonna be excited to talk about it. But before we close, as always, we have a bunch of fun stuff on this YouTube channel. Something for everybody. So Matthew, go ahead and tell our friends about that.
Sundays, we have Real Talk with myself and Nick Mulbach, where we talk to people in the industry and trying to make a name for themselves in the industry. Monday, we have Spin from the Real with myself and Chris Anthony Lopez, our Schmodown show. Thursday, we have Really Scared with Taylor Cleek and Connor Breedlove. We have Wrestle Reels on Friday with Chris and Nick. And then we have Saber Reels on Saturdays now with myself and Toby. And maybe another show or two. And then we do small content throughout the channel. Like Taylor has been playing Resident Evil, The Village, and we do that on he does that live on our Twitch channel, and then it gets loaded on YouTube after the fact. We do real reviews. We got one coming up this week with myself and Connor talking about A Quiet Place Part 2, which that was the fun event I was at earlier today that Kobe mentioned at the top of the show, where I was fortunate enough to see a Q&A with John Krasinski, which was amazing. So yeah, that's it.
And you can catch me and Jacob talking about the UFC on Twitter right after the show, because we just had a card that we were watching while you were talking to John Krasinski. I'm just kidding. But anyway, that's going to do it for the show. Jacob, thank you so much for being on the show. We will have you again, I am sure. Thank you so much for watching, guys. If you like this video, like the video. Leave a comment if you like. And we will see y'all next week. May the Force be with you always.
Another happy landing.